Hey everyone, Professor Caldwell here. I hope all is well. As you see in your announcements, this is part of our week one is going to be going over APA writing style. If you're familiar, great. I would still encourage you to stick around, get a refresher. If you're unfamiliar, I'm going to try to simplify it the best I can. And it is a requirement for some of our work. And, every semester I get people get really panicked about it because they don't know. But I want to take that off of you, right? What you're going to learn quickly about my courses is I come from a very real world perspective. I've got a lot of experience in this industry and lots of different areas, right? And I want to share that with you. We're here to learn. We're not here to get hung up on writing. However, it's super important, right? Because for those that are going to continue your education to maybe a graduate program or an undergraduate program, then APA writing is going to be everything you do. Papers, discussion boards, anything you do in the behavioral health industry is going to be done, even as a professional. If you're not continuing your education, will be done in APA writing. Does that mean I use it every day? Absolutely not, right? But what happens is, I'll tell you this, I went to Lone Star, 15, 16 years ago, and they prepared me as much as any of my other programs, undergrad, graduate, to be a clinician. I believe that. This program with Professor Killian, and I had Steve Lewis back in the day, they prepared me as much as anything. The one thing that Lone Star didn't prepare me for was APA writing. And by the time I got to grad school, I was behind the curve big time. And so I don't want that to happen to you. So understand this. I'm here to work with you. I've put together this video with some examples I've made. And let me just apologize now. I've got dogs and I'm on dog duty, so they may start acting out. Just be prepared for that. But that said, I've taken the time to create some examples to simplify it. I will always meet with you via Zoom anytime, as many times throughout the semester as needed to help get this going, right? There's also a writing center at the Lone Star. It's in our syllabus. You should have already read the syllabus and watched the syllabus video. And if not, do so. It's in there. That information's in there. But here's the thing about the APA in my course is you're not going to get points off if you do it wrong, at least not the first couple times, right? If you don't correct the mistakes by paper number 2, correct the mistakes in paper 1, and you just keep doing the same mistakes, you're going to lose points at that point, right? That makes sense. But if you do the APA and it's wrong, you won't lose points, in particular on the first paper. Absolutely not. I'm going to correct it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to move on. If I don't hear from you, I have to assume you know what you're doing, right? So, because some of it I'm making super easy, like there's a title page, and I'll go over that in a minute. All you have to do is copy and paste the information and put your information in. And every year I get people throughout the semester not do that and wonder why they're losing points. It's super easy. Like, it doesn't get any easier than copying and pasting, right? So all that said, this is for, just so we're all on the same page, DAAC 2341, Counseling of Substance Use Disorders, the fall of 2024. And when many of us think of counseling, right, you're going to hear me use this ideal throughout the semesters. We think of the one-on-one interaction or the group interaction, right? But that's just a piece of the counseling puzzle, right? Documentation is another piece that we have to be well-rounded in, and APA is a part of that. So that's the reason for this. So I want to take a minute and have you go through your content to D2L. If you're not there, go ahead and pause this and go to content, and there's an APA tab there, right? And in your APA tab is where you're going to find this material. And this is where we're going to start. And it looks like I've closed all my... That's okay. Give me 1 second here. I've got my computer open here. So the first thing you're going to see in the APA tab, it says APA sample paper. Click that. And here you'll find just that, an APA 7 writing style paper. I used one very similar to this. Well, it was this exact paper, only it was for APA 6 style. They've since changed it to 7 and updated it. But this got me through college, truthfully. You see this is a title page. And all these boxes here tell you exactly what you need. Like the first box says, note there's no running head on a student paper. That means it's just blank. They used to in APA 6 have what they call a running head, which was like a title. It said the word running head and then a title. That's no longer there. The only thing on the title page is a number at the top right. That's going to be on every page. Then you see you have your title in bold. And then it should be 3 or 4 lines below the top margin, not middle, not low, 3 or 4 lines down. This tells you exactly what you need. Then you see you have the author's name, which would be your name. Then you have the Department of English, on this one, Purdue University. You would have Human Services, Lone Star College. DAAC 2341, Counseling of Substance Use Disorders. Professor Dan Caldwell, the date. Now, I don't know why we do a title page, to be honest with you. I think they're a waste of time, in my opinion. So that said, but we do, right? They have the sorry, people are texting me. It throws me off. Squirrel, right? But they have they're required. So all that said is you have to do them. That's why. So we do them. But they're super easy. Anyway, this goes on. If you follow it down, it's a whole paper. And it has all these things to look at, right? But then we're going to go back out of that one. And then the next one, this is really the one I want you to look at because this is an amazing paper. It says student example. I just updated it last spring, from a student's paper I got last fall. You click that and you can see all my writing on the side. This is what an APA paper should look like in my class, or any class, honestly. You see the title page. It's its own separate page. All it's got is a number at the top, the title, a couple of spaces, like 2 or 3 spaces, all the information here. Just like it said on that other example, right? You see I commented perfect. Doesn't get any better than perfect, right? That's all that's on this page. It's got its own page. Then you come and you start the second page and you'll see there's a title. Then you can look and see it's bolded, it's centered. You can follow this and see the citations, which we'll get into in some examples here in a minute. But this is how I'm going to comment on your papers. And part of your instructions from the syllabus are to have your papers all turned in a Word document. This is why. I can't do this on a PDF, and I won't accept a PDF. So, yeah, if there's a reason you can't, you need to get with me sooner than later, because this is how I need your papers to be so that I can give you this feedback, right? But you can see as you move down the paper here, where there's citations, she's following everything. I'm going to ask you to be a student, a client, and a counselor all in one time, and take those experiences in that way. And if you'll take a minute and read this paper and read my comments, you'll see what I'm referring to. So at the end, you'll see, if you go scroll down to the reference page, it has its own page. So every APA paper, now this is just the papers, this is not the discussion boards, and we'll go over the discussion boards in a minute, but the papers, and you'll have 4 of them, they all have a title page by itself. Then you have your minimum 2 to 3 pages of a paper, that's it. And then you have your reference page by itself, and that's where you use your scholarly resources. Scholarly resources are other textbooks, peer-reviewed journals, which you can get at any college online library. I will allow you to use websites in this case. There is a thing called, in the Lone Star Library online, called the Night Citation. Use it. Plug in your information, and it'll give you your citations. I'm cool with that. Like, look, we're not here. I use it to this day, right? Like, we're not here to split the atom. We have this technology. Let's use it. So let's cite these things, right? And the idea is for you to get used to doing it and understand why you're doing it. Because the reason we cite work, both in our text and at the end of our work, is because we have to give credit to whoever we're getting this information from, right? So if I were to say to you, well, let me back up. So under the assumption that it's common knowledge, you don't have to cite. Like if I say the sun is yellow, that's common knowledge, right? We know that. I don't have to cite where I got that information. I don't know. I just looked up at the sun, right? Makes sense. If I were to say to you, the United States flag is red, white, and blue, that's considered common knowledge. We should all know that, right? But if I were to say to you, Betsy Ross sewed the original American flag in 1776 or whatever it was, that's not common knowledge. And so I need to cite, in other words, give credit to wherever I took that information from. Otherwise, I'm plagiarizing, even if it's unintentional. Like, I just know Betsy Ross sewed this flag from my years of school. I don't know where I learned it. So in my mind, it's common knowledge. But as I present it to a reader, I need to support where I got that from, right? So if I were to say to you, Alcoholics Anonymous is the most heavily attended self-support group in America, is that my opinion that I'm presenting as fact, right? See, what would I cite that with? I would cite that with something to support that, some sort of information. Where did I get that information? Did I just make that up? Is that something I heard at a meeting? That doesn't make that fact, because I heard that somewhere, right? You see what I'm saying? So anyways, just really look this paper over. Again, it's got it's got a title page, your 2 to 3 page paper, and a resource page. This is a great reference to use. I'm going to encourage you to use this throughout the semester. That's why I put it here, right? You can simply take this title page, copy and paste this title page, and put your information in. Put your title, your name, the date. Like everything else is the same. It doesn't get any easier than that. Again, it's to get in the habit of doing it and using it. It doesn't get any easier. I'm giving you the permission to copy and paste it. But last semester I came across someone who, for all 4 papers, copied and pasted it and left someone else's information in there. You can't do that. That's silly. You're absolutely gonna lose points for that. Take time, proofread your work. So one thing you need to know as well about APA is it's this Word document. It's Times New Roman 12-point font, double spaced. Everything we do, that's papers, discussion, everything. Times New Roman, 12-point font, double spaced. Now, all this information is also in your syllabus, so if you forget, you can go back and see it's in there. That's APA writing, and you do lose points for not doing that, because these are simple things to space your work, to proofread your work, right? If you get in a rush and just turn something in and you lose points, all that's in the grading rubric. You should have already gone over that in the syllabus, so I don't want to spend a bunch of time there. I'm going to open up the next thing. It says APA example DB. DB means discussion board. Now, you're going to have to hit download on this. It'll come up, but hit download, because otherwise you won't be able to see my comments. But once you hit download and open it up, you'll see all my comments. Now, this is an example of original DB post done in APA style writing, right? The spacing's not right. Let me say that. It should be double spaced. But I think for sake of space, I did this. So it says if you roll over each sentence with your cursor, it'll highlight what these comments are from. Right? So there's a major problem in the United States with substance use disorder, SUD. Always spell out the word the first time you use it. In parentheses, put the abbreviation, then you can use the abbreviation. So if I'm writing about Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't write AA, I write Alcoholics Anonymous, parentheses AA, then I can use the abbreviation AA throughout. Or same thing, licensed chemical dependency counselor. I write that out the first time, every single time. And then in parentheses, LCDC. Moving forward in the paper or the discussion, I can write LCDC. So I paraphrased, meaning there's no quotation marks, right? You use quotation marks from a direct quote, meaning I took this word for word from the textbook or my website or wherever I'm getting the information. Otherwise, it means I took this information, but I put it in my own words. I paraphrase what the information said, right? And so notice there's no quotation marks. Anytime you use a direct quote, there has to be quotation marks because you're literally copying someone's work word for word. And then you see at the where it says SAMHSA 2018. Now, if you'll come down, you see it's just in parentheses, the name and the date. There's no page number, right? And that's because there's no direct quote. We're going to talk about that on the next examples, right? But come down here and you'll see SAMHSA. This is the way to cite that. That's where you see that. Then I go on, our author, Lewis et al., 2019, note, quotation marks. This means I took this directly out of our textbook. Lewis et al. Is our textbook we use, and I'll explain what et al. Means in 1 second. So notice it says Lewis et al. 2019, note, in quotation marks, for general counseling purposes, a substance abuse problem is assessed if a client's use of alcohol or other mood-altering drugs has undesired effects on his or her lives and the lives of others. Page 4. You have to include a page number. Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. You have to include a page number if you're using a direct quote. We want to know where you got it, or a paragraph number if you're getting it off the website. That's right. You have to count the paragraphs. And if you look at my comment, it says this is a direct quote. You see how that works, right? And so, anyways, you can go down this list and see, and then here's a response. So our DBs are 200 minimum, 250 max words. Now, if you're 15 under or 15 over, fine. Do not send me a DB with 100 words because you'll lose points, as your rubric showed. Or one with 700 words. More is not better. And the reason is we want to be concise with our clients. Again, you may wonder how this has to do with counseling. Besides documentation, we want to start being how can I say? We want to take the fluff out of what we're saying, right? If we're working with a client, it's very possible that if we're very long-winded if I take 700 words to get something I could have got out in 200, I have a potential of losing that client in the process, right? So we want to be very intentional with what we're doing and say what we need to say. So 700 words is not always better than 200 words. So you have 200, 250 max. All this was in the syllabus as well. 100 to 150 on your responses, right? But this is what they look like, right? Followed by the references. Now, if we get out of this one and we go to the next one in the APA tab, let's see here. It's going to be, I lost it. Sorry, guys. It's going to be examples 2, it says. You open that up. You don't have to download this one. I don't think there's any comments, but again, here's another example of an original DB post and how to cite it with 2 references. I use them in the writing and at the end of the work, right? And I started to tell you what et al. Meant, and I got sidetracked. So et al. Means there's more than one author. If there's more than one author, like in our textbook, Lewis, Blevins, and Lewis, Dana, and Blevins, or Lewis, Blevins, and Dana, I don't have it in front of me, but those are the 3 authors. We don't write each one of those. We write the first author, followed by et al., et, period, comma, al, whatever the date is. The author, the date, and then if there's a page number, right? And so you can look through these references and see them very clearly how that works, right? And so moving down here, I made a book up called Elephants Are Gray. Just to make an example, right? And so here's where I point out how we cite in the text, in our writing. So this is an example. We're just pretending we're replying to a peer's DB post, right? That says it was particularly beneficial to learn that elephants are gray. In your discussion board post, you noted that elephants get their gray skin color from blah, 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 blah. I'm the author of the book, and I put this together in 2021. So Caldwell, parentheses, 2021, points out elephant's pigment can vary from elephant to elephant. Now that's an indirect quote because there's no quotation marks, meaning I took that information and put it in my own words. I paraphrased it. So there's no quotation marks. Notice the author and date are at the beginning of the sentence. Caldwell 2021 is the author and the date. You always have to put the author and date. But note, the parentheses are only around the date. When I start a sentence just like this with the author as the citation at the front of the sentence, I should say, you only use parentheses around the date. Now, moving down, here's another example, and then there's how I would cite that. But moving down to the next example, this is where I cite the author's name and date at the end of the sentence. You can do either, right? The reason we do one or the other is for flow of the paper, and you have to determine what sounds better for you. Sometimes it's easier just to say like this. It goes on, it was particularly beneficial to learn elephants are gray. In your discussion board post, you noted that elephants get their gray skin color from blah, blah, blah. Now, here's where I start my indirect quote. Elephant's pigment can vary from elephant to elephant. And now notice I end that sentence with my citation within the period, right? Period after the citation. But the whole thing is in parentheses, Caldwell 2021, right? So note it's still an indirect quote. No, I paraphrase, there's no quotation marks. The author and date are at the end of the sentence this time. So note the parentheses are around both the author and the date. Where when I started the sentence on the other example with the author, with the citation in the front, you only use parentheses around the date. It's not hard. It's new. Remember that, guys. It's just new. It's not hard. If I start you can reference this. This is why this is here, right? Reference this paper or these examples. If I start the sentence with the citation, then I use the parentheses only around the date. If I finish the sentence with the citation, the parentheses go around both author and date. And then I don't think I have one here. Okay, yes, I do. Then the last one is the same sentence. It was particularly beneficial to learn elephants are gray. In your presentation, you noted elephants get their gray skin color from blah, blah, blah. Now, here's a direct quote because I use quotation marks. Elephant's pigment can vary from elephant to elephant, end quote. Now, notice my name, the date, and there's a page number, and they're all in parentheses. Right? I use a page number because I used quotation marks. Now, if this was a website, it would say para, P-A-R-A, and I would literally have to count the paragraphs, 1, 2, 10, 20, whatever it is, let's say 11. Paragraph 11, para 11 is what that would say rather than page 22. Now, so notice there's quotations because it's a direct from a source. Notice the parentheses. The one thing I would tell you here is there's one other way. If I were to start this sentence with my name and the authors, the same rule would apply as the previous. Caldwell 2021 and 2021 would be in parentheses. The author's name and then the date would be in parentheses only. Notes, quotation marks, elephant's pigment can vary from elephant to elephant in quotation marks. Then you would put parentheses, page number 22 at the end of the sentence. That's it. So depending whether you put the citation at the front of the sentence or the end of the sentence determines what's in parentheses, right? So if it's the front, it's just the date. If it's the end, it's everything. Right? Or if it's a direct quote with a page number and it's at the beginning, it's still just the date and the author's name, date only is in parentheses, and at the end of the sentence, the parentheses are the page number. Or if you do it like this example shows and do the whole thing at the end, everything's in parentheses. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Again, we're not here to do all the things, but you do have to be familiar, and I hope this helps. The last thing on here, look guys, I've cited things for you, so there's no reason for you not to get these if you use these resources. I've cited our textbook on here. I've showed you how to use it in your writing and at the end of your work. I've also cited the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have cited the 12 and 12. and I've cited the DSM. So there's no reason if you use these references not to just copy and paste this. There's no reason to get it wrong is what I'm saying. Right here it is. So here's how you cite your textbook at the end of your work. Either if it's a paper, you do it on your reference page, and the references need to be in alphabetical order. If you do it in a DB, they're just at the end of the work. You say references, and here's how it should look. It's double space. It's Times New Roman, 12-point font. And notice, when we write normally, we indent the first line of a paragraph. On our citations, the first line is not indented. All the other lines are, as you can see here. That's APA, how you cite an APA resource. Now, if you use it in your writing, you would say an indirect quote at the beginning says Lewis et al. There's the et al, right? Because it's Lewis, Dana, and Blevins are our authors, as you can see. I keep wanting to say Arthur. Are our authors. Say that 3 times fast. Are our authors. There we go. And so we only write the first one, Lewis. Et al. Means there's more than one. I don't know exactly what it means, but it means there's more than one author. And then the date, in parentheses, notes drugs are bad. Another indirect quote, if we're citing at the end of the sentence, drugs are bad. Lewis et al. 2019, and the whole thing's in parentheses, right? This is just more of what we just talked about. The direct quote, you're using quotation marks, which means there has to be a page or a paragraph number. Drugs are bad, end quote. The whole thing's in parentheses. Lewis et al. 2019, page whatever, right? So if I was to do that with I need to add one to this, with the direct quote, where I started the sentence with the citation, it would say Lewis et al. Parentheses 2019, just like the very top one. And then it would say notes or points out or says or writes, quotation mark, drugs are bad, parentheses, page XX, right? So et al. Means there's more than one author. You can read this a little bit. So, and here's the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is how you cite the AA book, the big book, right? Cite it just like this. So that's how it looks at the end of your work. In your text, it would say Alcoholics Anonymous 2021, or Alcoholics Anonymous, all in parentheses, or Alcoholics Anonymous page whatever, right? This is the 4 ways you would cite this in your work. So if you start the sentence, you're going to see examples down here of all 4 of these. Alcoholics Anonymous with the date in parentheses. Alcoholics Anonymous 2001 with the whole thing in parentheses. Those are 2 are for indirect quotes. Either you start the sentence with that or you end it. For direct quotes, if you end the sentence with the citation, let's say, more about alcoholism says, we're not cured of alcoholism, let's just say. And then, so if that was a direct quote with quotation marks, you would end that with parentheses, Alcoholics Anonymous 2001, page XX, right? Page whatever. Now, if you started the sentence with Alcoholics Anonymous, parentheses 2001, states that we are not cured of alcoholism, parentheses, page XX. So read through these some more. Just this lays it out fairly simply, right? As simple as it can be. So remember, though, let me encourage you to take a breath. This is as easy as I know how to make it for you. I've spent a lot of time putting these together over the years, and I will always be happy to meet with you via Zoom anytime. To go over this individually. We can do it as a group. It's really, I offer both throughout the semester. Again, a lot of this is just habit forming. That's what it is, right? Because we will use, I don't want you to panic because it's new. I promise you we're here to learn the material, right? But part of being a clinician too is, especially working at a facility where most of us start, is taking instruction and building upon that, right? Remember, this coursework simply prepares you to be a practicum student, which prepares you then to be an intern, which then prepares you to be a clinician. So I know when people say want to be a counselor, they're not worried about documentation or taking instruction or being a case manager or any of these details, right? But that is a big part of what we do as counselors. And I'll talk about this throughout the semester as to how this impacts our clinical skill and how it impacts our clients, right? So, guys, again, please feel free to reach out to me. Excuse me. I will schedule as much time as you need to go over this. Again, we have a writing center as well. And just like that, right on cue, the little dog's telling me it's time to go. So I'll wrap this up and we'll talk soon.